Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and right next to me is my lovely co-host, the Chattering Teacup.
Hello.
And here with us, from across the pond, dystopian sci-fi author Anne Joyce. Hello Anne and welcome at Book Lovers Companion.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you on and talk a little bit about the doom and gloom of the future. Well, your 3 books are, I have to say, a bit gloomy.
Kind of my specialty, I guess.
Okay. You published 2013 a book called When the Chips Are Down.
Right.
And I was wondering, is this book a young adult novel?
Yes, it's kind of like the high school age and up.
Okay. And the next one, the second one is Arid in 2021, but you've also published a prequel to this book.
Right. I know I'm a little backwards, but yeah, I wrote the big novel and then I wrote the prequel.
Well, it happens now and again, I suppose.
Yep.
Every now and again. This one, the prequel is called Parched. And again, like I said, we are experiencing, while reading this book, doom and gloom in the not so far future. And it's not so... it's not as if we can't imagine
relate to it because it doesn't seem too far-fetched in some regards.
No. How did you? When did you came up with the idea?
For Arid, I want to say I think that was 2017. I used to watch these little conspiracy theory documentaries and things about how in some of the northern states in the United States, lakes and rivers are just kind of mysteriously drying up. And a lot of politicians here, they own a lot of aqueducts. There's actually water being transported illegally with the government's blessing. There's a lot of corporations that will sell water to other cities experiencing droughts, and just the whole privatization and profit of what's supposed to be a natural resource just really got me thinking and got my head spinning about it.
And also for your first book, When the Chips Are Down, although it's a young adult novel, reading it as an adult myself, I think it's also not that far-fetched, because the idea of having chips implanted and using them to pay is not
open doors are existent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's some people that have actually voluntarily had chips installed. So, yeah, it's not a far-fetched thing at all anymore.
No, that's what makes it so scary, I suppose.
Yeah, because you can somehow relate to it. It's not outlandish.
Yeah. And could you tell our listeners a little bit about Arid? What's going on? What's happening?
So in Arid, Josh, my main character, and his group, they didn't know each other before all this happened, but basically throughout they become family. They've been exiled to the wastelands because they couldn't pay the exorbitant rising water taxes, and they're forced to live out in the middle of nowhere in Shackville. They have, very little resources, poor living conditions, and the water barons, who have basically made everything, illegal to own water, and they've blocked off all major bodies of water. They have their own group of thugs called purifiers that enforce the rules. And occasionally the purifiers come to the wastelands to give Joshua some water and basic amenities because he's an expert on wind turbines and they've needed him every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough to send him in the city, but enough, to utilize his services on occasion.
Mm-hmm. And at one point they realize they can't go on like that any longer.
Right. After something really terrible happens with one of the characters and the amorality of the purifiers is really exposed, that was just the whole catalyst where everyone's just completely fed up and seeing they've had so many members of their group die. They went from 25 to 7 or 8.
And may I ask this dystopian sci-fi genre. What drew you to it?
I've always been kind of a dark-minded, kind of pessimistic person, so I guess it wasn't too far of a reach. It's just I kind of just take what's happening in the world, all the bad stuff, and I put my own take on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you are breaking it down. You are more the Star Wars kind of person, whereas the both of us, we are more like the Star Trek kind of people.
Yeah, I'd say so. I am a fan of Star Trek too, but yeah, I guess I'm more Star Wars mindset.
Okay.
I think there are two kinds of people when times are bad. I think some want to read or see something that is more humorous, something lighter to make them feel better. And I guess others want to read or see something about someone feeling worse off to feel better. I'd say.
Yeah,
Maybe.
good point.
Maybe that's why people want to read about murder when the bombs are falling during World War II. Because I'm currently reading a biography about Agatha Christie, and she was still very successful during the Second World War. And she sold a lot of copies of her books, and maybe it was a different kind of escapism back then.
But her books are not dark.
They're not dark, yeah, true.
Riddlers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in the first book, this young adult novel of yours, When the Chips Are Down, it's not also doom and gloom, but it also has a nerdy part in it.
Oh yeah, I'm a total nerd.
Okay. I was asking about that. If it reflects a little bit about yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think all my books do. With my books, I kind of took fragments of my personality and loaned them to my characters.
Mm-hmm.
And Arid, Ziamara, well, she's a lot of fragments of my mom, but I think the rest of them, they're all certain shades of me. I think is enough. That's probably common.
Okay. So you're the nerdy nerd.
Oh, yeah.
So can I say that basically you're putting yourself in these not so nice situations?
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of mentally have to be there as much as you can to really, relate to their characters and feel their pain.
And in Arid, which person in this group was, for you personally, as a writer, the least likable one?
Oh, that's a good question. Other than, the bad guys, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Other than the bad guys.
Probably Blaine. I mean, I love Blaine, but yeah, he really did do some stupid stuff.
True. Yeah, that's true. I mean, but we do understand him, why he does it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, aside from Josh, who's the main character in this story, who was your favorite?
Julio.
Yeah. He's the cheeky one.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice.
Pretty rough around the edges.
But in his heart of hearts, he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah.
They're often the most interesting ones because there's this contradiction within themselves.
True. And in your writing or in putting things and ideas to paper, how much research was involved before you felt you could develop these whole stories?
Quite a bit of research. I did watch a lot of documentaries. I read a lot of articles about basically the current events on water and things like that, and the types of animals that live in the desert. I did live in Arizona for a while, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time out in the desert, so I kind of had to familiarize myself with what animals are out there, what perils they go through, how they behave, stuff like that.
And during your research, did you stumble across information that was unexpected?
I don't think so. Not a whole lot. I guess I'm just with the government and the state of affairs. I'm just not too surprised to hear about some of the crazy, outlandish things that they're doing. I do remember reading about how Nestle is. They're basically using a body of water called Guinea Springs, and they're using that for their water and selling it. And it's like a public domain, and it was restored and paid for with public money. So it's just, I put that on my blog. It was just all kinds of crooked. That did kind of surprise me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this huge company is or has its fingers in all kinds of pies, don't they?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the book made me think about a documentary I once saw about water. I don't know where exactly, but somewhere in Northern America, a company is every day with a lot of trucks getting water from a natural source to sell it. And if you play that a bit further and maybe they take all the water and don't allow people to get some from there, you get a bit more to your book.
Downright scary.
That's an interesting thought.
It's also downright scary again. I mean, just like the idea we just spoke about with the chips. I mean, people voluntarily let themselves being implanted with chips.
Because I think if a lot of the technology, it always has an up and a downside.
Yeah.
And I think often people only think about the convenience and the upside, but never think about how it could be misused. And in dystopian fiction, we're more thinking about the disuse.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, in your opinion, why do you think, or when do you think, has this outlook changed in sci-fi from more utopian to dystopian?
That's a good question. I think at least over the past 10 years, there seemed to be a rise of popularity of dystopian books and movies like Divergent and The Hunger Games and things like that. I think the worse our society gets, the more it's going to be reflected in art.
Yeah, probably true. Just 10 years, maybe more even, do you think?
Oh, yeah, quite possibly.
I mean, we spoke about it this afternoon, and we're wondering about this whole utopian, dystopian change. And you said, I mean, Star Trek, the beginning with Gene Roddenberry, it was after World War II, when the outlook was still a positive one. And like you just said, it reflected society and thought it might get better after this awful experience of World War II. But now it often feels, I mean, the pandemic, then now...
Even before that.
Yeah, even before that, and now this war we have in Europe going on between Russia and Ukraine. Will it ever change again, do you think? And
I
when?
really hope so.
Yeah, so do we.
I really hope so. And all the gun violence in America, it's just ridiculous.
I think it always goes up and down all the time, but you never know when it's going to be going up. And if you're on a downward track, I think dystopian things are more likely to appear in any kind of art.
Yeah.
I think, is it more the authors are, I'd say, kind of taking what people are thinking and turn it into stories, or is it a way to make people aware of the dangers of what's happening?
I think it's kind of both. I think sometimes, I know I've known other authors that they created stories and series basically based on a fandom. They knew a group of people that wanted, a certain type of novel, a certain subject that wasn't really out there. But yeah, I think a lot of dystopian, have like a cautionary tale, an underlying message in it. Like maybe, if you hope people will read it and wake up and see maybe the world won't end up as bad as you think it will.
Well, let's hope so, to be honest. To be quite honest. And, sorry, writing dystopian sci-fi, would you say that you have a role model in doing so, or not at all?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a lot of popular authors that I look up to, like Orson Scott Card, Dean Koontz, Stephen King, even though he's more the thriller, but
A good author. And how would you describe your writing process? Because coming back to the fact that you wrote Arid and then you decided to write this prequel, how did that come together?
Actually, writing a prequel was my ex-boyfriend's idea.
Oh,
He,
okay.
yeah, he did my website. And we were just talking about it, and he's like, you could just write a prequel. He's like, maybe just make it something short, like 10,000 words, which obviously that didn't happen. I was like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Just let everybody know exactly what happened and what these people's lives were like in society before everything hit the fan. I was like, why not? He had some pretty good ideas sometimes.
One plus point on his side then. And how would you describe yourself as a writer? Are you the meticulous planner type or not at all?
I plan to a certain extent. Like I'll write a rough outline, but I change it so many freaking times, and I'll be like, go back, like, oh, that was stupid. Why did I even plan that? No, it's going to be like this. So yeah, I have a rough outline. I mean, you have to have some map that you go by, but I change it so many times. I have a general direction of where I'm going.
And was there anything during the writing process, be it either from the characters or from the whole plot, that did surprise you? So much so that you felt you couldn't go on that way? Not just your process of writing itself, but during the development of the plot or
you had to change direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had to a few times. I had some ideas that I was like, oh no, that's not going to work. But I was able to find a way around it pretty quickly.
And did the characters look over your shoulder and tell you, no, not like that?
Sometimes. Sometimes they help. Sometimes they were just off doing God knows what. Or they're just pissed off at me because I made their lives so hard.
You did indeed. I have to tell you that.
I mean, it's in the outset of the book.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's not going to be an easy ride.
Yeah. Do you think, since you are in the United States and you live in the United States, do you think, just an idea, because we are discussing that as well, that the book, be it the first one or Arid, would work anywhere else than the United States?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think it's possible. Slovenia is one of the few countries that I know that has actually declared water a natural right, and not, a public good that can be profited from. But from what I understand, they're among the minority.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Our neighbors. Yeah, they do have good ideas. Maybe we should look at them more often and find out what's going on there. But also the question of writing dystopian sci-fi. I mean, living in a country that is so vast might make it a bit easier, do you think?
Because there are quite a lot of areas that are not too densely populated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I thought about, 2 different states, and I chose Arizona, obviously, because the wastelands were more dire, in the desert. Yeah, a more sparsely populated area or a greener area, it would have been probably a whole lot different for Josh and his gang.
Take, for example, Austria. Where would we put them?
But actually, we're talking about not having enough water anymore in Europe, because there wasn't enough rain last year and this year. So talking about saving water in some way or another. So who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, especially when you think not just water, but we use water a lot to produce energy in Austria.
If there's no water?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think it was last year in France, because they need the water to cool the power plants.
The power plants, yeah.
And as there wasn't enough water, they had problems with producing energy.
Yeah.
I know they're having a lot of issues with that in India too.
Yeah.
They're such a heavily populated country too. I could see that.
Yeah. And they need a lot of energy at the moment because they are prospering and they're growing very fast economically.
And
population-wise, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And haven't they just reached a higher population than China?
Not yet.
Not
They
yet, but,
estimate in
yeah.
the next 3 months. You never know when it's exactly. But yeah,
More food for thought for books like yours. I mean, putting the plot or a plot idea, let's say in India, do you think you could come up with an idea, giving the fact that all the things that are going on at the moment?
Oh yeah, I think that could work. It might be, a different scenario since it's such an overpopulated country, but yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah, because at the end of your book, I'm not trying to give too much away, of course, but it seems to me the problems are never ending, and it made me think a little bit of. I'm not sure if it's based on a book actually, but I suppose you do know the film Soylent Green.
Solid Green. I have heard of it, but I have not seen it.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting film because in the end it is revealed what is going on. It's also dystopian and it's also rather scary.
Very disturbing.
Very disturbing.
But we won't give it away.
No, we don't want to give it away, but it has a little bit to do with the ending of your book.
I'm going to have to watch it.
Yep, you should. I mean, if you like Charlton Heston or not, doesn't matter, but he made good films every once in a while. And I think when was it made? In the 60s, 70s?
I have no idea. It's quite some time ago.
Yeah, and because your book, the ending of your book reminded me of this film a little bit with everything that's going on actually. And would you say that the sci-fi genre as a whole has also grown or changed in a way over the last 10 years, let's say?
Oh, yeah. I think it's always going to evolve and change. It's, it seems more blunt now and more very open about the problems and how bad society is. I think, decades ago, they kind of sugarcoated it a little bit.
Do you think that sci-fi has moved a bit from more stories in outer space to stories set on our planet?
Yeah, from, I don't know, a lot of movies I've seen. I've not seen as many space-themed movies. Though I don't know, I guess maybe that is a subject that's hard to keep fresh, kind of like zombies and vampires.
and maybe humans have traveled in outer space. It's not that exotic anymore.
Maybe.
I mean, not that far, but they're talking about Mars.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, even Jeff Bezos did in his phallus-shaped rocket.
Do we really need Jeff Bezos in space? I mean, could we have left him there? Would it have been a good idea?
He didn't go anywhere, I guess.
I know.
He sent others.
Yeah, but didn't he want to go?
I guess when it will be safe.
Yeah, this is everyone's love-hate relationship with Amazon, I suppose. Don't we all have that?
Oh, yeah.
Especially since the pandemic.
That's also maybe a topic for a story because Amazon has become so important in some countries for business and for providing services and goods that you can't scrap it.
No. Do you think that companies like Amazon or, I don't know, the big IT companies, are they the new kings and queens of our...
Kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with Walmart, it's like everybody hates Walmart, but everybody still shops there anyway.
That's also something.
Especially with inflation and everything.
Yeah.
Groceries are ridiculous, but they're cheaper than about everywhere else. I mean, if they've got you by the pocketbook, they can pretty much rule the world.
Which I find fascinating what you just said about, I mean, groceries are very expensive here as well. But also in the United States, you are such a huge country and you produce so much food, actually. And yet you're also a victim of this whole situation. Because here they always say, because of the war between Ukraine and Russia. Is this also a factor? How they justify the prices in the United States?
as far as groceries, I've not heard that. For gas going up, then yeah, that was a big thing. Oh, because of the war, even though Russia, I think, only supplies 1% of the world's oil, the big oil found a way to take advantage of that, jack up the prices. Groceries, it seems like there's been a shortage of everything, of crops. All of a sudden now they can't produce anything. That's been the excuse. Oh, there's a shortage on tomatoes. There's a shortage on lettuce. I'm like, seriously?
Who eats all the lettuce? There aren't that many bunnies in the world.
Yeah, but
I was going to say they got some rabid rabbits, I guess.
But wasn't there quite a few dry years in California where a lot of produce grown? Could that have to do with it?
Maybe.
Yeah, that was possible because I know California, they have a lot of brush fires and things like that. So yeah, that does affect the supply chain somewhat.
So good area with parched again. Kind of.
Absolutely. And in the sci-fi genre, how is your experience as a writer as far as the percentage of male-female authors is? I always get the impression more male authors tend to write sci-fi. Are the women also getting there?
Yeah, I think they are. I think there may be more popular, more famous male authors. You know, the classics like Ray Bradbury and George Orwell. But yeah, and I've met a lot of other sci-fi authors in my authors group and things like that, sci-fi, fantasy. So yeah, they're out there. I think they're growing in number. So yeah, maybe one of them will be the next George Orwell, and then they'll tell everybody about me. And
who knows? Who knows? Maybe. And what about the readership? What is your experience with the readership, male, female? I also get the impression here that males, maybe men read more sci-fi.
Maybe it's because of films, because sci-fi films, or at least in the past, seem to be more oriented to a male
audience.
As far as my experience, like my fan base, I think it's about even with male, female. I know, like, I look at my stats of like my social media pages and my followers, I think they're about even, maybe a little bit more male, but an age group, it's like people in their 20s, 30s, 40s. But yeah, I haven't seen a big gender gap.
So it's also a little bit more for younger generations, you think? They are more inclined to read and watch sci-fi?
I think so. I think so. I don't know a whole lot of older folks that do. I'm sure they're out there, but yeah, I know some of them are like, oh, that's too realistic. That sounds too scary. I don't want to. No.
I mean, it does sound scary, and it was scary. I have to tell you that your books are scary.
But
they really are.
I think it's also that draws you to it because you read maybe the back cover of a book and it sounds interesting, but it also sounds scary, and then you want to read it because if it doesn't sound scary, maybe not so much because it's some of the appeal of it, I think.
Yeah, well, definitely for me, I'd say absolutely. Yeah. And what about the writing community you just mentioned? What about this whole pandemic and coming together and exchanging ideas, and how do you do it?
Mostly social media. I mean, with writers, there's a camaraderie. You know, it's like if people are being too competitive about it, they're going about it the wrong way. You know, we always try to like promote each other and share ideas with each other, help each other out. But yeah, that definitely got bigger for me with the pandemic because so much of our marketing and networking and everything was online.
Yeah. Did pandemic in some way, because we used social media and video calls more often, did that increase the options to be in author groups because it's easier online?
Yeah, I think it did, especially because, you know, a lot of people were out of work. I wasn't. I got more work. But
I understand that.
But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that had more time to build their communities and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you just spoke highly of the sci-fi writing community, and nobody ever says it's awful, they are backstepping. But rumor always has it that romance authors are always stepping each other in the back. Have you heard that as well?
Not really. I've not had a lot of bad experiences. I have had, a few people in the past, like I agreed to do review swaps with, and I bought their book, then they didn't do mine, and they wrote like a half-assed review that they obviously got from other places. But so I learned real quick to be like, you want a review, screenshot that you bought it. I'll do the same thing. But yeah, that's about the worst experiences I've had.
But nothing of the more, I'd say, backstepping thing like, awful and so on.
No, I've personally never experienced that. It's been pretty cohesive.
And can you think of the funniest review you ever got?
The funniest review? Oh, another writer in one of my groups, she wrote a great review of Arid. She even like took a picture of it with lights around it. And her review was pretty good. And I remember at the end she said, Julio is the best character and you can't convince me otherwise. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, he is an interesting character. I mean, maybe even the best character. The most relatable, I'd say. Maybe.
He does have that underdog quality.
Yeah.
I think probably more than the rest of them.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And he knows people who know people. And he has a lot of people who owe him favors.
Oh, yeah. It's always blew Josh away.
Yes. That's what we call, what is it? Networking.
Yeah.
Isn't it also something you must or you have to do, like you said, coming together in writing communities, supporting each other, and networking and going on social media has become more of an issue these days for writers?
Yeah, definitely. I have done like book signings and stuff like that before, which was really, I was successful with it. I just haven't done it in a while. When the pandemic happened, I'm like, no, I don't want all these strangers breathing on me. But yeah, I mean, and the next best thing to being with somebody in person is to make a video, let people get to know you, because if they feel like they know you, then they're more likely to be interested in your work.
And how much of your time would you say does take it up? I mean, writing is a very intense process. Editing is also a very intense process. But talking to a lot of authors, it seems as if being present on social media and promoting your book yourself takes up even a larger chunk of your time these days.
Oh, yeah. It's a major time suck. Yeah, you spend probably at least as much time marketing as you do writing and editing and things.
Yeah. So it's always in some way a bit of a hindrance to write?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially if you're juggling all that and a full-time job and to write and market. Yeah, the struggle is real.
And what about the conventions for sci-fi authors?
As far as conventions, my area, there's one not far from me I went to called the Imaginarium. I haven't been since COVID. I may go this year, but that was a great experience last time I went. I got to meet, there's writing classes, and they have some people that are vendors are selling their books, and there's so many different events. They had a Star Wars dance.
What is a Star Wars dance?
Just kind of like a ball thing, and people dressed up as Star Wars characters.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, my ex did not want to go to the ball. He's like, this is your thing. He's like, I'll go with you if you buy the tickets and everything. I said, that's fine. And I was like, okay, I paid for everything and you won't even go to the ball. He had this long hair. I was like, we could do you up like Princess Leia. And then he had a few choice words about that. But...
Or maybe Chewbacca?
Yeah, that would work for him.
Oh, who knows? Yeah, why not? They did not do this kind of thing online, this kind of conventions, or I don't know,
minus
events?
The dance.
Yeah, minus the dance. No chance.
Not really. I mean, I've been to, educational webinars where
Mm-hmm.
there were a group thing that basically, gave advice on marketing, writing, stuff like that. But yeah, not as much fun as the Imaginarium.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 And do you also get at these conventions, do you also or have the chance to get in contact with, let's say, people from other media like TV or film?
I've not really had the opportunities for those connections. I know some authors have. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that's really hard to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd like to, especially some of the movies I've seen lately on, whatever streaming service. I'm like, oh, this was actually made into a movie. Yeah. Arid should be a movie if this can be a movie.
Yeah. What are the good ones in your opinion? What should they?
Good movies?
Yeah, yeah. What should be the elements that would make, in your opinion, a good sci-fi movie?
Okay, kind of the same as a book. Obviously you got to have strong focal characters, character development, a good plot, and even though a lot of bad things are going to happen, you want to have a hint, I think, of hope for the
Mm.
future and for humanity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do have hope for humanity in your book, but evil never sleeps, does it?
Afraid not. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody reviewed my book once that said that Arid is as hopeful as it is unnerving.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that's good. Yeah.
yeah, spot on, I'd say. Absolutely spot on. And what about your younger audience? Since you said that when the chips are down is more like young adult fiction, what about getting feedback from them?
I've not, oh, it's been a long time since I've had any feedback. Yeah, I was mostly positive.
Mm-hmm.
With that, it's a whole marketing thing because,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want the parents to be afraid of the content and stuff like that. So usually if the parents are okay with it, then the kids will read it and the kids will like it.
You
I
put
did talk to some teachers about it before, about getting into a school, libraries and stuff like that. I'm still working on that.
okay. I mean, it's a really hard thing, obviously. What is the hindrance? Because hearing news from the United States these days also about school libraries, about books that are not allowed, books that get banished from the school libraries, that's something we do not have in Austria or in let's say,
Not as far as we are.
western part of Europe. Not that we are know of. Books don't get banned from libraries.
Yeah, that is the governor of one state. He took a whole bunch of books out of the school library, and I mean for no good cause. He's about as crooked as it gets. Yeah, I've never understood that. They've tried to ban movies here before, and sometimes though if they try to ban things, it makes it more popular.
Yeah.
Oh,
More
Because if
interesting.
everybody tells you can't watch it or read it, oh yeah, well screw you, I'm gonna do what I want.
yes, indeed. I mean, but it's not only the government in the United States, but there are also groups that want to get rid of certain books. Come to think of, for example, To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, why?
Oh yeah, that is weird. That was on a banned list for a long time, and I never really understood why. Sometimes you just got the Karens of the world, if you will, that want to have a cause and complain about things, and if they can find enough people to follow them, they will.
Hmm. That also, but that would also mean that books like, I don't know, 1984 will not be in a school library, or are they? Or is this book in a school library because Orwell didn't mince words?
Yeah, that's true. I'm not sure if they allow it there or not.
Is it in some way harder to market a young adult book because the age group it's meant for changes every few years?
Yeah, it is. And you really have to be very cognizant of the social media trends and what websites young adults frequent. Because I don't think a lot of them are on Facebook anymore, and they see that as something is more their parents. So I think they're more about Insta and TikTok. So yeah, you just gotta have to know where to reach them.
And also, do you also have to be very careful what to put into a young adult sci-fi?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When you've got more impressionable minds and parents that would have a fit if their kids are reading something they don't like. Yeah, it's definitely more censoring.
So it makes it more difficult to write a young adult book than an adult book.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I would say that.
That also makes me think of a late acquaintance of ours, Geraldis, who read everything that was in her parents' or her relatives' library. Not always for her age group, but her mother, yeah, why not? She should read it. Okay, yeah.
It wasn't appropriate, but
so what?
It didn't matter in the end.
It didn't matter, yeah. And I think it might not be that easy, even here, for, I don't know, teenagers or children to get their hands on, even if people own books. The one book they own.
Not if it's under a table.
Not it's even, yeah. Not then. I mean...
But come to think of it, if a book is on the shelf, a child can always take it down. Maybe if the parents are not at home. But if it's only an ebook, I guess it's much harder to get your hands on it without anybody else knowing.
True.
That also reminds me of my time at home when I lived at home as a child. And I don't know, I mean, we talked about it because now we talk to you as an American, and the thing with alcohol. You know, I mean, those forbidden books are a bit like alcohol, you know? When I was a kid, my parents had this living room cupboard. I mean, I think yours had them as well. They were the thing back then in the 80s, yeah? And there was this part of the cupboard where there was a bar. There was a key that was always in the lock, because you had to turn the key so the flap wouldn't go down. And the key was always there. And when I came home from school, I was at home, and my mother was still at work. And I could have easily gone to the cabinet and get my shot of...
Whatever,
exactly. I never did. Do you think...
Same here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you think that is still... Parents these days still do that? I mean, the same with books. Just put them in the shelf and, like our late acquaintance, just take them out. But books are not that dangerous as alcohol. And yet some people want to have them banned.
Oh, I know, it's ridiculous. I think it depends on the parents, what their parenting style is, and if they're listening to certain governors.
I think maybe the more fuss you make about it, the more interesting it becomes for children. Yeah. Because if it's just there and they know they could always take it, but nobody cares about it or makes a fuss about it, so why should they take it if they're not interested? I mean, it's alcohol's not good tasting for children anyway. So it's an acquired taste.
No, yeah, true.
And the dangerous thing, I think, with books is that it can make people think. And that's what some people are afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Goodness me, have citizens that think dangerous.
Like Fahrenheit 451.
Yep, exactly.
It's probably banned somewhere too.
Probably.
Sure. For sure. Because, don't get me thinking, don't get me reading, better not.
It's like 1984.
Yeah.
When we read it at school, it was interesting, but so far out there what happens. But a few years later, it's not so far-fetched. It's become more nearer to our reality, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just like with the chips in her book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not so far-fetched. I mean, you said this book in 2020. You're a prophetess. Because when did they start implanting those chips? Didn't they start somewhere around that time?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And now our, bank cards have chips in them.
Yeah. Our mobile phones can be traced because of our SIM cards and so on. I mean, we do okay, that's on the plus side. We do chip our pets.
But it doesn't work the way we want it.
Yeah, it doesn't work the way we want them or like it works in your book. But come to think of it, I mean, it's not so far off, is it?
Oh no, I remember seeing a commercial years ago. It was like some AT&T like technology of the future, and there's a man and he's got this watch on and he's at a diner, and the waitress walks up and just with a scanner in her hand and scans his watch, and that's how he pays for the bill.
Yeah, that's what they do with Apple. Apple Pay just works like that.
Yep.
Look at the communicators in Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's life imitating art.
Exactly, and also the tablets they had in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now we all have them. Life imitates art. Art imitates life. That's the question.
Both.
Both.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Goes both ways, I suppose. So too. And Anne, what would be your advice for any other aspiring sci-fi author out there?
As far as advice, as far as writing, promoting yourself, I would tell them to be a better writer, to read a book called Techniques of the Selling Writer by Swain. It was written in the 60s, so the language is a bit archaic, but it's got a lot of good stuff in there. And yeah, get in as many writing communities as you can. Find other like-minded people. Get advice. I would also tell them to sign up for a newsletter called The Book Shepherd. There's a lady there that does podcasts, gives a lot of good writing and marketing advice. So yeah, those are good places to start.
And what about your plans for the near or even far future? What can your fans expect from you next?
Well, I have recently converted Parched and Arid into audiobooks that are available on Google Play. In the future, I do want them available on other platforms like iBooks and Audible. It's just a bigger hurdle to jump through right now. Yeah, as far as future stories, I haven't decided yet, but I definitely have some ideas.
I mean, Arid does have a sequel in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I made sure to leave that door open in the epilogue.
But also for your young adult book, there is potential for a sequel.
Yeah, definitely. That had been so long. Yeah, I could potentially rewrite that, revisit it, and put a whole new spin on that.
And are there any plans of turning one of your books into a screenplay?
Oh, I would love that. If I got the opportunity for that, yeah, I would jump on it with both feet.
And who would play your Josh?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe Chris Pratt?
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. And what about Maria? Who would play Maria?
Maybe Rosalind Sanchez?
Okay. Yep. Why not? So anybody out there who owns a production company, you heard it, get Chris Pratt. Make sure he has time and find someone who turns the book into a screenplay. Why not? We are waiting for good stuff to watch on TV, don't we? Always, yes.
Never can have too much of that.
Exactly, us Trekkies. Absolutely. And is there anything else you would like our listeners to know? Anything else you would like to share?
Yes, if they go to my website, annejoycewriter.com, they can get a copy and sign up for my newsletter. They can get a copy of When the Chips Are Down for free. And if they wish to purchase my audiobooks, they're Parched and Arid both. There is a 15% bundle discount.
Okay. You heard her, dear listeners. Grab it. That's your chance to read interesting stuff or listen to interesting stuff. Teacup, nope, no more question for our guest. Neither from me. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
Thank you very much for joining us and keep on writing.
Thank you. I definitely will.
It's good to hear.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You did enjoy this episode as much as we did? Then hit subscribe and don't miss the next episode. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you like to support us and buy us a coffee, you can do so via Buy Me a Coffee and other platforms. You can find all the necessary links in the description. Until next time.